Hello everybody, it's Mrs. Summerlin and I wanted to make this very quick video here about how to fix your paper before you submit it. This is what I refer to as the check yourself before you wreck yourself senior project list. This list will be available to my students and Mr. Cox's students on Monday. If anybody else wants a copy, I can surely get you one. But all of these things on here are about a point each, so if you can fix them before you turn it in, those points are as good as yours. Alright, so to help us through this video today, I am going to use this research paper from 2017 by Jack Ryan, of course, and I'm going to go through that list sort of simultaneously so that we can keep both those things in our focus. Ooh, my camera's doing weird stuff. All right. So that first thing on there is that 12-point font. Well, if you click randomly throughout your paper, it should show you at the top, okay, that's 12 point, that's 12 point. Okay, everything looks pretty good and consistent. If you're concerned about it, I have no problem with select all and then 12 point Times New Roman just to make sure that everything is on the up and up. Can't be too careful. You need to check the headers as well. So okay, that is 12-point font. That one is 12-point font. Okay, good. We need to double space throughout. Again, if you are concerned, you go up here to select all, and you can double space it just to make sure everything is good. No extra space after each paragraph. Sometimes when you double space after the fact, you get these random large spaces in between. Make sure that everything goes together. So just be aware that that's a thing. All your paragraphs are indented. Your running title. So let's look here. Title, running head, title on the first page. Okay, so here's one of our first mistakes. Jack doesn't know how to do a running head in APA format. You need to make sure that you click different first page up here. I have a whole video on how to do that if I did it too quickly for you, but it exists. So he's got his running head going on here, and we need to make that in all caps. All caps. That looks good. Scroll down here. It doesn't say running head, which is correct, but that is in all caps. That is excellent. That's exactly the way it should look. Just the title on every page after that. I would say here, his title, he needs to capitalize education there. That's just a random weirdness. 1-inch margins all the way around. If you print from Microsoft 365 online or Google Docs online, it's going to alter your margins a little bit, make it look smaller. So go ahead and download the paper and print it from the computer just to make sure that it looks the way you want it to look so you get all of your points. But an easy way to check the margins is you can go View, ruler, and if you click that, the ruler will pop up and you can see like that's a 1-inch right there and that's 1-inch right there. Same thing on the opposite side. You can check those margins. Every source listed on the reference page is also used in the paper. This is one that gets our students all the time. If you mention a source in your paper, it has to also appear at the end of your paper in your references because you have referenced it. That's what that stands for. So let's just scroll through this paper just a little bit. He goes, okay, his first source right here is this individual. One of the things that you can do is you can go and find all copies of that. So if it's in the paper here, which is where it's highlighted it for me, if I look here, that is obviously a citation on page 8. Oh, pause for a second. Okay, so his citation appears there. His citation is on page 8. Okay, great. So keep scanning through the rest of it. Okay, so this is the next guy, his next source. So I want to find that source. All right, beautiful. He mentions it 2 more times. It's also on his references page. So you can go through your entire paper like that and just check behind yourself that everybody you cite in the paper also appears on your references page. And if you do that going through your paper, you should be absolutely fine in that regard. Now, and when we get to references, sometimes, if I'm scrolling all the way in to the end here, sometimes you make your references page and you get confused and you actually don't ever use a source. So it's easy to just do the same procedure in the other direction. Go through all your sources, click on Weisman here, click Find. Oh, it looks like Weisman doesn't appear in his paper anywhere. So it's just this source here. So he needs to delete that guy. That source needs to be gone. Let's do the same thing for Walter. Yes, he mentions Walter 3 times throughout his entire paper. So if you do that process, go through the paper and make sure it's on your references, then go through your references and make sure it's on your paper. If you do that, you will get all of those points and you'll have no deductions. So let's go back up here through the citation list. Every source has an author, a year, or a page or paragraph number. So again, as you're going through these and you're scanning them, I like to highlight my sources as I'm doing this just so they stand out to me, and it's easier to find them. I've got an author, a year, and a paragraph number. Put a little period right there. Author, year, paragraph number, author, year, paragraph number. Now you typically use paragraph numbers if you're using a quote that's from a thing that doesn't have pages, like a website or a digital journal. So use a paragraph number instead. You go through the rest of this. I don't like when you mention first names in APA because APA really doesn't like first names, but author, year, page number, paragraph number, he's doing this the exact way he needs to do. If he has a quote, which here's a quote, you need author, year, paragraph number, or page number. If it's just a paraphrase, like he's done up here, just the author and the year is fine. So in-text citations. Oh, and that's a thing that happens a lot, is sometimes when you're writing your in-text citation, you don't include the citation as part of your sentence, which has happened right here. So if we zoom in, you can see that his quote here ends with a period, but he doesn't have a period back here, so this citation is just sort of hanging out in limbo. It's technically part of this sentence that follows it. So you just delete the period right there. You put the period behind it so that now this citation is at home with this quote. That happens a lot. Just be aware. And then the backwards quotation marks. So sometimes if you're typing a thing and you've gotten away, you get these weird sort of backward quotation marks. And I can't make it do it. Just be aware that this kind of quotation mark is wrong. So go in and fix it. Be smarter than the computer. So your references page, let's skip down to that reference page because I know there's some mistakes there that we need to fix. So here the first mistake I see is that it says works cited. It should say references. You have a references page in APA format. You have a works cited page if you're doing MLA. So references. And then you have sources are in alphabetical order. Well, already I know that these are not in alphabetical order, and there's an easy way to fix that. So you highlight everybody. You go up here to this button that has an A on top of a Z with an arrow. You click that. You say, I would like them to be in ascending order. And boom, they are in alphabetical order, and it'll fix it all for you beautifully. Every source listed on the reference page is also used in the paper. That's where you would highlight them and you would click find and find it. It's mentioned in the paper. So it's that backward citation method check that I was telling you about. Every source needs to have a hanging indent. Check, we have a hanging indent. If you don't know how to do that, you highlight the source. You can go to this little down arrow here with paragraph settings. Click on that. You go to indentation. You go to special. You go to hanging. Boom. And you'll have a hanging indent. Double check your APA format. So APA format is traditionally last name, first initial, year. Good. The article title here in sentence case, so only the first sentence is capitalized all the way through. You have an italicized journal title and retrieved from wherever we retrieved it from. That looks appropriate. I'm not 100% happy with all of his citations. Here's a much better citation. The Myth Behind Public School Failure from Yes Magazine. This is not right, so we'll fix that for him. Period. And then those are your page numbers retrieved from EBSCO host. And that's good to go. So then let's look at the rest. So paper, no first or second personal pronouns. So let's go back up to the beginning. I'm only going to do the start here. It is 2017 and yet our, here it is right there, our, that's a personal pronoun. And yet the education system seems to be very stuck in 1917. So that's an easy way to get rid of your contractions is just, you could probably change it to an A or a the, or rephrase the sentence. No contractions. Well, isn't, that is a contraction right there. So we've got is not, to make that something that's, to make that something that's more appropriate. Clear thesis statement. He's got the solution is education reform that conforms to 2017 era, getting rid of monopolies of testing. So this is a thesis. He's good. Every body paragraph has at least 2 citations. That's an easy thing to just sort of spot check, especially if you highlight your citations. And then there are a couple of things that are not on this list that we're going to go over super fast that we see. The number one is a lot, and he has it right here. Don't use a lot. It's just a generic word. It's actually 2 words. So a lot is spelled a space lot. It is 2 different words, and it's too generic and broad. You can say something better. In this case, he could just say phones. Phones are getting smaller and towers are growing taller, yet education stands still. That's a much stronger statement. You also want to avoid very. Very is an overused word. Get rid of it. It doesn't matter. It is 2017 and yet the education system seems to be stuck in 1917. That's way better. We overuse very. Here he's done it again. Very. So it's not very essential. It is essential. That modifier, that qualifier doesn't need to be there. So another pet peeve I have, and I don't think he's done it because he listens to me, is to don't end your paragraphs with a citation. So at the end of this paragraph, don't put a random citation because that makes it seem like the entire paragraph is from someone else. Always end with your own thoughts and your own ideas. You also want your paper to go to the bottom of the 6th page, and you might be saying something like, well, Mrs. Summerlin, you said 5 pages. I did 5 pages of writing. Your cover page is your first page. Your words don't start until page 2. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So on page 6, all the way to the bottom, and my suggestion is to make a sentence spill over onto page 7 so that you know you are all the way to the bottom. Mr. Cox refers to this as the 2-inch rule. If you have words within the bottom 2 inches of this paper, you're good. So here's 1 inch, here's another inch. If you don't have words within that bottom 2 inches of paper, we take points off because it's not long enough. And yeah, we use rulers. Get over it. It'll be fine. So my suggestion and what I always did in college was spill it over a little bit onto that 7th page so you know you are good. Another thing that happens a lot is using back-to-back evidence. He does this a little bit here where he's just like quote, 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 quote. You always want to make sure that you are spending some time developing your evidence before you jump to the next piece of evidence, just so that it doesn't look like you're name dropping, like you actually have a statement to make about this argument. And then lastly, block quotes. I've spoken about block quotes in a previous video, so if you want to know more about block quotes, go back to that. Avoid block quotes. Your paper is not long enough for a block quote, and if you have more than 1 block quote, I am taking points off because you're just trying to take up space in your paper. 5 pages, you get one block quote, and you better cite it right, and it better be correct. So be careful if that's the direction you're headed. All right, well, I hope some of this was helpful, and if it wasn't, you know where I am, so just come ask me a question and